choice for president will face escalating tensions in multiple regions around the world, as well as 2 ongoing wars. And the results aren't just going to affect the millions of Americans from coast to coast. The outcome will impact the trajectory of the United States and its standing in global politics for the next 4 years. Because of that reason, the race is being watched both at home and overseas. Ukraine is one of the countries that is most closely monitoring the race, as the outcome could impact continued help from the U.S. and its Western allies. The Biden administration just announced an additional $425 million military aid package, which includes air defense interceptors, munitions for rocket systems and artillery, armored vehicles, and anti-tank weapons. Russia launched its invasion more than 2 years ago, and since then, the United States has provided more than $66 billion in military assistance to Kyiv. James Waterhouse is the Ukraine correspondent with our partners over at the BBC, and he spoke with many Ukrainians on the ground there about their hopes for the upcoming election.
The fate of Ukraine will be determined by an election thousands of miles from here. In the mostly occupied Zaporizhzhia region, these soldiers are keen to demonstrate the American technology and weapons which keep Russia at bay. It's much more effective, says Alex. The damage it inflicts is much more than a Soviet one. It was once hoped Ukraine would mount a counter-offensive from here. Now the aim is to hold out against relentless Russian attacks. It's why the merits of supporting these troops have been increasingly debated in the US.
The outgoing Biden administration has promised thousands of armoured vehicles like this one in the coming months, long after he is out of office. They've been instrumental in Ukrainian progress on the battlefield, but the problem for Ukraine is that progress has been harder to come by.
But as politicians talk, missiles routinely slam into cities like Zaporizhzhia and frontline villages like Komishuvaka. A change of American policy could see this area become a demilitarized zone, or even engulfed by Russian troops if aid was to stop. Total liberation of Russian-occupied areas seems less likely now.
Shoes off.
I met Lyubov here 2 years ago when her house was destroyed. She's now been rehomed, and I asked her whether she'd negotiate an end to this war.
What about those who gave their lives? I see the end of the war only when we reach the borders of our country as they were in 1991.
Lyubov's daughter and grandchildren fled to the US when the invasion started.
I would like a true friend of Ukraine to win the election there, who will continue to support us. But who it is going to be, I cannot tell you.
Back in Zaporizhzhia, at this underground theatre, a performance for a prominent poet killed in battle. Anger over the past, but how do the cast feel about what's ahead?
I see 2 possible options. A future where we remember our heroes, speak Ukrainian and develop our culture, or we have no future.
America will now decide whether to give Ukraine enough to win or just to not lose. Or that would be the hope.
And joining us right now from Kyiv is James Waterhouse from the BBC for more on this. James, thanks for being here. What are Ukrainians' biggest concerns surrounding the election outcome?
I mean, where do you begin? I mean, we've looked at the 2 candidates' different stances on future support for Ukraine. I think what's interesting, when you go to frontline places like Pokrovsk, this town that's increasingly getting destroyed by approaching Russian troops, when you speak to people that see death and destruction on a constant basis, they want an immediate end to this war. They think Ukraine should have negotiated long ago, and they see a Donald Trump presidency as the best path to that. That is a minority view here in Ukraine, but even if the American support was to be sustained, it doesn't solve the country's problems. They are still struggling to mobilize enough men. We are back to seeing supply issues of American aid. President Zelensky said he's only had 10% of the aid that was signed off by the US Congress earlier this year. And Russia is advancing, not just in one area, not two, but right across the eastern front line. Things are incredibly fragile and perilous for Ukraine, and yet its sustained fight against Russia is underpinned by American support. This is a really uncertain period as we approach the winter months when military progress will be far more difficult to achieve.
James, if the U.S. breaks away from its current support level for Ukraine, could that ultimately impact the way its Western allies will provide assistance? Is there appetite for them to step up?
There's appetite, but there's also a pragmatism here. You know, the European Union, for example, it once set a target of 1 million artillery shells every year to make and supply to Ukraine. They missed that target by some distance, and there is an acknowledgement among an increasingly divided Europe that any gap left by the US simply cannot be filled. And yet on the Russian side, when we look at this expected deployment of North Korean troops, we are seeing this war's footprint increase to the frustration of President Zelensky. And what is interesting is how displeased, how angry South Korea is. This is not a NATO country. It's not bound by the same policies. It's a serious manufacturer of ammunition and artillery shells, and it is looking at breaking a long-term policy of supplying Ukraine with lethal aid. That could change things, and it also forces the West to think about how it could respond in the future. But let's be clear, if American aid was to stop, then Ukraine's ability, it doesn't matter about its desire to fight, will be hindered in the very immediate term.
James Waterhouse, thank you for joining us.